This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Survived the 4th of July, was part of fireworks, but I stood 50 yards back like a wise podcaster should. Hope everybody had a safe, fun 4th of July. I'm enjoying some time off from the practice, just enjoying having some cocktails, throwing it back, getting a nice tan, and checking in with everything going on in the world of Detroit sports. Man, people all up in arms on Twitter, about the Red Wings, Pistons, Jameson Williams. Felt like it's like a real interesting dynamic where I'm chill, relaxing, and meanwhile in the Detroit sports world, everybody's pissed at the Tigers for getting their ass handed to them by the A's. So this is Hater Week. And who better to bring on than the ultimate hater, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski, who is, first thing on his mind, he is still very frustrated, is not accepting of Steve Yzerman driving a hard bargain with everybody, not accepting of Steve Yzerman walking to the podium and telling everybody, listen, I got this job. My seat's nice and cool. You may think that you want all these talented players. I'm taking all the young draft picks and I'm storing them, and I'm going to do the Ken Holland 10-year rebuild, and y'all are going to like it because I'm Steve Yzerman. I got the rings, and I got my friends in all the positions I want, so you're going to have to accept this talent acquisition phase, and y'all got to like it. And you got the same thing with Troy Weaver, who goes up to Tom Gores and is like, you know, we can just build through the draft and we can take 6-7 years, but you know, it may take a while to acquire this talent and to develop it and to nurture it. And yeah, we may pass on a Tyrese Halliburton for Killian Hayes, but let's disregard that and let's focus on drafting more players and drafting young talent that we believe are true Pistons. And then you got the Tigers, who are at rock bottom. So, and then you got the Lions, who are at the forefront of a rebuild, who in 3 years potentially can make the playoffs, which is what is satisfactory. But I get your frustration. But maybe, just maybe, the whispers are starting to come around again that maybe the Red Wings are number 2, maybe behind the Islanders in regards to the DeBrincat sweepstakes. Does that kind of give you a little bit more comfort knowing that the Wings are in the mix and it's just real hard negotiating regarding terms, regarding price, not wanting to give up too much, taking a hardline stance against, obviously, a situation where the leverage goes to other teams because DeBrincat doesn't want to be there. So I think that the Wings are playing, they're definitely driving a hard negotiating stance, which I'm impressed with. I like that for Steve Yzerman. But I guess I just have to ask, is it DeBrincat or bust in regards to the Red Wings? Because obviously we all seen what he did with the Blackhawks when he was with Kane. We saw what he's capable of. He can be a first-line player that can put the puck into the net. And I think he's a player that, you know, I haven't gone to a Red Wings game, I think, in 2 full seasons, that I would say, okay, put him on a nice line that can score. I might shell out $40 to go to one game or maybe a couple games to see what he can do, because he's got some star potential and young player, but I know that the Red Wings don't want to invest 8-9 years and $9 million a season for this cat. So do you think that, hearing the TSN reports and the tea leaves, do you think that we're still realistically in the sweepstakes for this cat?
I mean, I think we are, but at the same point, it's more of what you said, where it's DeBrincat or bust, because, and it's not so much that it's because it's DeBrincat, it's because of what Steve Yzerman has done with this free agent period, with the draft. Going into the draft, I was one of the people who was dead set and positive that he was trading a couple of these picks because he had so many picks. He was trading them to get somebody in here now who could help make a difference. And then I was thinking, okay, well, if he doesn't do that, I was trying to be patient. If he doesn't do that, we'll see what happens with free agency. So he goes through the draft and does whatever he does. and now we go into free agency, and really free agency was like a dirty diaper. It's a bunch of second and third line guys, and you sign some of these guys, like a guy like JT Comfort, who's 28. You sign him to a 5-year contract at $5.1 million. Like, what are you doing? He's not a good player. Like, he's a solid third line player on a good team. That's what you're spending a lot of your money on. That's what you're spending on. Like, this is what we're talking about. Why not take some of that money and give it to a guy like DeBrincat and try to negotiate with him where you pay him a little bit more and maybe work down some of those some of the years that he wants, because Steve Yzerman doesn't like to give contracts in excess of 7-year deals. So what are we doing, Steve? Like, how are we constructing this team? It's a bunch of depth guys. The one problem that we've had hasn't really been a bunch of depth guys. It's we don't have anybody to play on the first line. If you want to build this thing around Dylan Larkin like he says he does, which I don't necessarily get, because in my estimation, look, Steve knows more about hockey than I'll ever hope to know about hockey. Dylan Larkin isn't a first-line guy. Dylan Larkin is a second-line center on a good to Stanley Cup winning team. That is what Dylan Larkin is. What you have here is you've got a bunch of second, third, and fourth line players. You don't have anybody who can take over a game, anybody who can just flip a game on its head. The guys you drafted, I don't know if any of those guys are going to actually pan out, and we're going to have to wait about 4 years to see. You just let Philip Zadina go. You tried to waive him. You tried to trade him. Nobody wanted him. He's now back in your system. He doesn't want to be here. So, like, none of it makes sense to me. Like, none of what has happened makes any sense to me. And then goaltending's a bit of an issue because your defense isn't that great. Your offense doesn't play great defense. And you go out and you sign a guy like James Reimer. James Reimer isn't that good. Like, what he's done is he's brought in a lot of C-level guys, and he's trying to spin it like, okay, cool, we've got depth. We filled out our roster. We're good to go. No, man. You had, I think it was in excess of $8 million that you had to spend to get to the NHL's floor of their cap. You had to spend at least $8 million. You mean to tell me you couldn't go out and get a guy like Max Domi or try to bring Tyler Bertuzzi back? Do you see what those guys signed for? It was basically pennies. And like Max Domi is a solid player. Max Domi gives you a little bit of that grit, plays a little bit of defense. He has the ability to score. A guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, again, plays with a little bit of grit, able to score. Like, what you've done is you've gone out and instead of going and getting the national brand, you basically got the Spartan brand of everything. And I'm not taking a shot at you for being a Michigan State guy. It's just, I'm saying you just bought generic product. And that's what you've got with the free agents class. And look, you're not going to get anything out of the draft picks for probably another 3 years. So what the hell are we doing? That means everything does hinge on DeBrincat. If you want to call this a successful offseason, it all hinges on DeBrincat and whether or not he can come in and immediately put up 35-plus goals. I'm not even asking for 40. I'm asking for 35-plus now. So, like, we've even had to dial that back because the guys that are going to be playing around him obviously aren't going to be that great because everybody's a second, third, or fourth-line player. It's just frustrating because going into it, you had a ton of draft real estate. You had a ton of money to spend. And what you got back was basically a used cardboard box. It doesn't make sense to me. It's very similar to what the Pistons did. Pistons had a bunch of money to spend. They had some draft capital. We all thought they were going to do something. And instead they go out and they draft bigs, and they draft guards that can't shoot. And then you go out in free agency and you're basically hooking up the nets with deals so they can sign a guy that you want, and you bring in basically guys that just don't necessarily make sense, or you don't see how the puzzle is supposed to come together. And I think that's the biggest frustrating part that fans have. You just don't see how the puzzle is supposed to work. And no matter how you try to look at it, whether you look at it from the top down, you look at it from the bottom up, you look at it from the left to the right to the left, you're sitting here scratching your head and you're just like, I just don't see it. I just don't understand it. And you're frustrated. And you're right. If you go to Twitter, which Twitter has become an absolute dumpster fire. I have no idea what Musk is doing with Twitter. It's really, really annoying. But you go to Twitter And it's like everybody's combative on it. Everybody's arguing about everything. I got into my share of disagreements and arguments on it. And look, it was a complete about face. If you look at my tweets from draft night to my tweets a couple of days ago, I was like, no, just like, let's just trust the process. You got a whole second through seventh round. We'll see what Steve does. He's got a ton of picks. I expected him to move something to get somebody of note here. He did none of that. You then go into free agency, and like I said, it's a wet fart. You didn't do anything good there. And I'm at this point, I'm talking to Red Wing slaps, and I'm like, guys, if this was anybody else, you'd be losing your mind right now. But because it's Steve Yzerman, you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. That shouldn't work like that. That shouldn't be that way. You should be able to look at this situation for what it is, and what it is isn't good. It is incredibly frustrating, Doc. It sucks right now being a Red Wings fan, being a Pistons fan, and we'll get to the Tigers later on, but the Tigers are just comical. They make me laugh. So it's tough right now, man. It really is.
Yeah, because what the situation is that what people are looking at is in the world of sports, and here's the part that I guess you have to weave into a conversation. You're charging a pretty penny to your fans to come and watch a team. And you can't tell them, well, we're not going to make the playoffs for 8-9 years and support the cause. And by the way, we're going to raise your ticket prices $10 every year and charge you for parking and charge you $12 beers and $20 pizzas and expect a fan base to be supportive. Nobody's asking the team to, hey, like I want a Stanley Cup like the Las Vegas Golden Knights in 6 years. But you can't. I just think that he made a misstep. You just can't tell fans we're still in the acquisition phase. Nobody gets to draft 6-7 years without the postseason. You got to start bringing these people up. You got to start showing that this year is something that is going to show movement. You can't stagnate and just be a team outside of the playoffs forever. It just doesn't work like that in sports. The natives will get restless. Everybody will be upset. Everybody will be very frustrated and very much so thinking that, wait a minute, Steve Yzerman is this very talented hockey mind, but what is he trying to do here? Is he basically, the sports world is set up for urgency. It's a win-now business. There is no world in which you can rebuild for 10 years. Because here's what happens, okay? Fine. If these, and I think this is where then they got to be held to the fire. If Steve Yzerman, Troy Weaver, and Scott Harris want to do we want to build properly, fine. You want to build properly? Then I'm not expecting just one championship. If you're going to build properly and have sustained success, then I want 2 to 3. Then I want to be if this is what your vision is to build forever and to stockpile 25 young draft picks, then I want 2 championships. I want a dynasty then. I want to see what was then established by the Lightning, where you're in the Stanley Cup Finals 2, 3, 4 consecutive years and win 1 or 2 cups. So that's what has to happen. If you're going to build for 10 years, then the expectation has to rise that 1 championship isn't enough to justify the fact that, hey, these owners, and I don't blame a general manager. I was talking to a buddy. I'm like, if an owner is going to let you build for 7 years and you're making $4 million a year, shit, take all 7 years. If I'm an owner, I'm like, look, I need a trajectory here. 3rd year, I need to see significant growth from where we were. 4th year in the playoffs. 5th year, we need to be starting to really crack the door of championships, getting to the finals, and looking like at least, hey, maybe a tough series loss. But I'm not sitting here staring across from Steve Yzerman being like, look here, legend. Take your sweet ass time while I go. I'll be like, dude, what the hell, man? The natives are getting restless. I'm not sitting here trying to let you take. He's getting hard earned money. I'm not letting you take $25 million before you show me a return. What the hell? There's some serious money and some serious expectations here. So the Pistons got to win 2 championships. Steve Yzerman's got to bring two to 3 cups if he's going to take his sweet ass time and stockpile all these picks, because you're tasked with telling me we're building it the right way for sustained success. And there's a lot of young talent. I give credit. But what people want is basically 2. And here's the other balance that I think people, I don't know if these executives just get into the rabbit hole and they don't think. Sports is a winning business and sports is an entertainment business. So while, yes, Steve, we understand you're looking for the player with the best Corsi and can hold the puck and can be a 2-way player, but at the same time, you need a couple dudes that can skate through the zone and at a moment's notice put the puck into the net, 40 to 50 times. And it's like you can't build a company with role players. Nobody wants to pay $60 and park and waste 4 hours to watch guys that are just going to check and grind. And nobody wants to watch grinders. Nobody wants to watch the grind line play for 60 minutes, 82 games a year. They're good on the fourth line. They're good for the spark when you need it, but you need the Brendan Shanahan and the Steve Yzermans and the Fedorovs and the dudes that will, at a moment's notice, put the puck in the net. And that's why the draft luck has been shitty. But I think these general managers are not understanding, hey, Troy Weaver, I need somebody that can do a windmill dunk, a little flash, a little pizzazz. There's an opportunity to do a lot more with these teams, and I'm hoping that there's an opportunity to do that more often.
You're absolutely right. If you look at when the Red Wings were their hottest, they had guys like you said, Shanahan. They had a guy like Yzerman. They had a guy like Luc Robitaille. And look, I understand the whole setup, Brett Hall, the whole setup of the league has changed because now you have a salary cap. Back then you didn't have a salary cap. I get that. But you still have to be able to work within those confines and go out and find guys and get talented guys who are going to produce and who are going to light the lamp. You can't just throw a bag of pucks out there and just throw a bunch of guys out there and be like, all right, cool, let's go do this. And then in the same respect, turn around and charge $80 a ticket, $15 for a beer, $25 for a hot and ready. Like you just can't do that. Like there is nothing entertaining about the Detroit Red Wings right now. Like we've kind of gone through it where it's cool seeing them kind of bubble up in the standings a little bit, get a couple of wins here or there, make a point by point progress over the course of 3 or 4 years. You know what the most fun time last season was? There was like an 18-hour window where this team was actually in playoff contention. They then went on to play the Florida Panthers, who made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. And the Florida Panthers pretty quickly routed you and showed you where you kind of belonged. And it was not in the playoffs, and it was not even in the playoff discussion. But being able to have that discussion for a brief moment of time, it was exciting. It was entertaining. And that's what we're asking for. We don't need to be the prettiest girl at the dance. We just want to be invited to the dance. That's what we're looking for right now. We are tired of being the Gargamel, the gremlin, the ugly chick who gets passed by everybody. At this point, we just want to get the invite to the party. Just let us show up. Let us show up. Let us look respectable. It would be great to show up and get a first-round win. That would be fantastic, right? I would say progress. Because I have visions of what used to happen when we would play Tampa Bay in the first round. They would just shellac us. But you just want to get invited to the party. You want to be good enough to be in contention where people are actually taking you serious. And at this point, it's just kind of a clown show. Whether it's the Pistons, whether it's the Red Wings, whether it's the Tigers, it's comedy. It's a clown show, man. It's incredibly frustrating right now.
Now, does DeBrincat, I know many people are really fascinated by this negotiation and wondering where he's going to end up. Is it the Islanders? Is it the Red Wings? Is it somewhere else? Do you think that if that's the final piece and Steve Yzerman wins the battle here and secures the services of this young cat that can score goals, does that kind of send the jolt? I know it's not the similar end-all piece like Brendan Shanahan was, who was a perfect addition. You just had the feel of like, man, if you remember back in the day, the Wings were a good team. They just needed that grit and punch, and he was an elite power forward. And you just knew that, oh boy, he's going to come in, and right away he ingratiated himself quickly and put the puck in the net and was just a real embodiment of what Detroit liked, was just a star. And I know DeBrincat adds a lot of value to the others on the roster. Do you think it's good enough? Like you say, okay, you know what? DeBrincat, adding him to the Red Wings roster is a good starting piece for a team that can make the playoffs. Do you think that's good enough? Or do you say, you know what? He's not a perfect player. He does have some concerns, and he's not playing along Patrick Kane, who was his ultimate setup guy. Do you think that, people are overhyping this? Because, for me, I'm just enjoying it because people are loving it. And I just love, I don't know why, I just fall in love with that meme, that GIF where the dude is just poking a stick and just say, "Come on, do something." I don't know. It's just appealing. It's just like I think it's a perfect metaphor on Twitter. Like, "Come on, Steve, do something. Come on," and the stick, poke him there. "Come on, Steve, get somebody." I think he's a good piece, but at the same time, I can't wait to see some of the young cats that have been drafted in the past 3-4 years start making it up. And I just think that Steve does need to make a little bit of a splash. Somebody that's going to make at least the staff at the season ticket department a little happy to be like, "Man, we got to sell some tickets, and there's nobody on this roster. I can't sell a Dylan Larkin anymore. He's too mundane. He's not exciting enough." Is DeBrincat, like, are we overvaluing him, or is he really somebody that you look at and say, okay, the hype is real for this guy? If Steve gets him, there's going to be some genuine excitement.
I think there would be a ton of excitement if you're able to get him. And it's one of those things where I think adding him makes guys better. Now, he's a type of player that when he plays with better guys, he does better himself. But I also think in retrospect, he is a guy you can put on a line, and all of a sudden Dylan Larkin goes from basically being a 25, 30 goal scorer to being a 35 goal scorer. I think Lucas Raymond would allow him to take that next step in his development, and he becomes a better player. The thing is, when you have a guy like DeBrincat who has the ability to score 40 goals in a season. Yes, he did it with Chicago. Yes, he did it playing with Patrick Kane. No, there's nobody on this team that is as good as Patrick Kane was when they were playing together. But I think DeBrincat's a guy who can put 35 pucks in the net, and you're going to be excited about it. When you have a guy like that on the ice, it opens it up for everybody else. That's why it makes everybody else better, because now the defense is focusing on him. And he has the ability to find his way into open slots and has the ability to put the puck behind the goalie. So instantly, everybody gets kind of leveled up, and everybody has the ability to do more. They have more freedom. There's more ice for them to navigate and work with. It helps bring in your defense. Your defense can now collapse down a little bit, and you guys can play more of a constrictive style when you're in the offensive zone. So there's a ton of stuff that you can do, and I think he helps put you over the top. I don't think he is the final piece. Like you talked about Brendan Shanahan coming in, and he was kind of the piece. He was the piece that put him over the top. Or if you want to compare it to the Pistons when they got Rasheed Wallace, put him over the top. I don't think he's that guy, but I think he makes you better. I still think you need to add more because, again, he's a first-line player. Dylan Larkin is a second-line player. You need to kind of fill out the rest of that first line. Yeah, Dylan Larkin can give you games and give you stretches where he can carry the Red Wings for a little bit, but over the long haul, he is what he's going to be. And that's going to be a second-line center who's going to be very productive, and that's what it is. You bring in a guy like DeBrincat, all of a sudden you're getting more production out of a guy like Larkin. You're seeing development from younger guys on this team because they have more freedom to skate. They have more open ice. They can do different things. And they can try different stuff. And a lot of times it's trying to try a fancy move, and you get confidence from it. And next thing you know, you do a little dangle here, you do a little dangle there, and the puck goes in the net, and everybody's happy, and the crowd's electrified. And now you're talking about guys like the Pavel Datsyuk or the second coming of. So you have, if he comes in, he is a draw because of what he can do and how he will help make this team better. But yeah, I do think he's an important piece, and that's why if the Red Wings lose out on him to the Islanders, dude, we are going to have a real strong conversation about what is going on with this team, because it has been narrowed down to you, the hometown team, and another squad. And if you can't get it done, I don't know what to tell you. It's like I just don't know. I don't know necessarily where we go from here, because I really felt like this offseason had so much potential, and very quickly it all kind of went away. Very quickly it kind of seemed like the resources that we had that were bountiful were just kind of spent, and it was just kind of like spent freewheeling, kind of willy-nilly, and you're just kind of like, well, what do we have in return? You got JT Compher and you got Gothisbehere. Cool, bro. And like, look, for those who don't know, Shane Gothisbehere, he's a decent defenseman, right? He's decent. He is a goal scorer. Like, he is an offensive defenseman. The problem with him is he sometimes neglects his duty on the defensive side. So if you're looking for a very complete, well-rounded player, he is not that guy. He is a offensive defenseman who thinks offense first, defense second. So you're going to have to pair him with somebody who is very defensively sound to kind of counterbalance and offset what's going to happen there. I think if you were to be able to get, you have Gostisbehere, you're able to bring DeBrincat in, I think instantly your power play unit 1 instantly goes up and looks much better. And I think you're able to get more production out of that specific unit. I think it looks much more lethal. But all that being said, you brought in a lot of people like to point to Gostisbehere like, oh, well, this guy's good. He can score goals and he can do this. But it comes with a bit of an Achilles heel, and that is he sometimes neglects his job on the defensive side, and he's not always in the best position on the defensive side. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think a lot of these signings that Steve Yzerman went out and got, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You know, like JT Compher, you want to bring him in for leadership, and that's fine. This is a guy who hasn't scored more than 18 goals in a season. He's a third-line center. Like, I get it. He knows Larkin. They played together. I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? I don't care that they played at Michigan together. That doesn't do it for me. It doesn't move the needle. You need guys who can put the puck in the net. That's what is killing this team right now is you don't have goal scorers. So it is frustrating. We will see what happens with DeBrincat, because if Steve Yzerman is not able to get this deal closed, we really have to take a big, close look at his time as Red Wings general manager, where we think it's going, and really and truly how it is going, because there's some red flags. That's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, does it feel like Yzerman and Weaver? Scott Harris gets more of the benefit of the doubt because it's his first year. He's getting his free pass year. But does it feel like Troy Weaver and Steve Yzerman are kind of building to nowhere, kind of like spinning their wheels? Because I do think their approval ratings have dipped significantly, and they're not doing enough. Because you got to remember too, there are some misses with Troy Weaver on his record already. When you see Halliburton get a max deal, and you're looking at Killian Hayes.
Killian Hayes, bro.
Yeah, it's bad. That's bad on your record, and you're realizing, man, you know, it's still in the hope phase that Cade Cunningham is going to end up being a star, but it doesn't seem like it. It just kind of seems like he's going to be a really good player, and it does just kind of feel like they are kind of in neutral. Not in neutral, I would say they're just kind of stuck in second gear, whereas when you get more years under your belt, it doesn't lend credence to get more trust when you're not making the postseason. And it also, too, it just feels like other organizations are lapping you and are getting a little bit better faster. And for the Pistons, at least, we'll see how Troy Weaver builds compared to Houston, who is a similar type situation. But with the Red Wings, it does kind of feel like it's going in a slow-paced mode, but I still have confidence in Steve Yzerman, but the slow and steady pace, like, is it going to be where when they get to the postseason, it's going to take another 2 years to get out of the first round? Is it going to be that slow? I mean, come on, man. That's not going to be sustainable for a long time. I don't feel like it's on a path to nowhere, but I think what is causing a lot of the angst is I'm not seeing the championship rainbow at the end of all of this. You know what I mean? I'm seeing a lot of just, hey, let's just try and build a team, and when we get to the postseason, we'll go from there. I'm not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. And same. I'm in the same boat. And more to your point, where you brought up the Pistons, how much different would this team look if they had a guy like Tyrese Halliburton instead of a guy like Killian Hayes? You know, all of a sudden things look different. In the future, this team looks different. I'm not saying that Killian Hayes was the pick that the Pistons made that really have kind of sank their battleship, but it seems like both the Pistons and the Red Wings are just kind of stuck. Like you said, stuck in second gear. You need somebody to kind of put you over the top. You need somebody to kind of push you a little bit. And maybe Cade will be that guy. We don't know. Cade hasn't played a full season yet. It's going to be year 3. You still don't know what you have. So maybe he's the dude who kind of gets things moving in the right direction. All of a sudden, you've got Cade and you've got the rest of the guys, and they all of a sudden look light years better than they did this past year. And maybe some of the pieces that Weaver brought in, maybe it makes sense. Maybe his vision actually works. I know the rest of us can't figure it out, even with an abacus. None of us can do the math to make it work. But maybe it does. We'll just say. With the Red Wings, I feel like if you get a guy like DeBrincat, it puts you over the top. It gets you moving in the right gear. Gets you out of second and gets you closer to being in first gear, where you can really rev up and you can really start to kind of take flight and launch and do what you've got to do. Right now, it just kind of feels like both Steve Yzerman and Troy Weaver had an off season where they could really do some damage, really put this team together and help it make some sense. And instead, what you ended up getting was a lot of people scratching their head and just being like, I can't read the tea leaves. Like, I can't understand what we're doing here. Even some of the smartest minds out there in hockey and basketball both are completely confused by what we've got going on here. So it's incredibly frustrating. And it's tough to watch because neither one of these teams seem like they're in a position where they're going to take that next step. And if they do go to take that next step, it's definitely not coming next year. It really feels like it's coming a year or two down the line. And that's really unfortunate because going into last season, we were looking at the Red Wings possibly taking a step forward. We were looking at the Pistons possibly taking that step forward. And it really just feels like everybody's stuck in neutral right now and nobody can take those steps forward. And when you look at the construct of the team, it just doesn't make sense on paper. So look, we'll have to see. We're going to have to wait and see. But if you are a Red Wings fan or you're a Pistons fan and you are frustrated, you have every right to be frustrated. You should be very upset with what both general managers did this offseason because none of it makes sense. It is becoming a much more bitter pill to swallow. And honestly, if Steve Yzerman strikes out under DeBrincat, we've got some bigger issues.
Yeah, it's that's the thing, is that there's this delicate balance of being competitive and surrounding the organization with some superstars. And right now, the Lions are in a better position because there are some superstar potential with Aiden Hutchinson, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs. There's at least some electricity, some buzz. And with the Pistons and Red Wings, a lot of role players, and you just got to spark it up a little bit. And let's see if the noise a little bit makes it so that the investments made will be more in line with some superstars, a little bit more of competitive juice. You just can't plod along. It just doesn't work that way. And soon you'll start to see the energy getting ramped up, the noise being ramped up, and I'm happy to hear that because while for me, I do think that Yzerman gets more credibility than Troy Weaver because Yzerman has built a sustained leader, but it ain't easy to do. It ain't easy to do twice. And that's the hope, is that you hope the magic didn't run out on Steve Yzerman, and you hope that the Red Wings, the Wings do get the benefit of an executive that has a sharp eye. And we'll see. We shall see, because now in the next year or two, you have your head coach, you have your guy that you brought in, you have your 4th and 5th draft classes coming up. It's about time now you secure some free agents. And I understand maybe it is one more year of waiting because the salary cap is going to go drastically up in the NHL with some things that are going to work out in the NHL's favor. But at the same time, you have to hit on those. And Steve Yzerman's not going to take a janky deal. So we'll see, because you're starting to hear that DeBrincat really wants to come to the Wings. He can see some potential. Let's just hope that in the end it doesn't end up being, and also too, because now just thinking about it, what I think is also making people a little bit more antsy is the Tigers had a failed rebuild. We gave Al Avila all this time and all this opportunity to go draft all these people and make some trades. And when he made the trades to tear down the team, he got jack shit in return and less than that. And all these players that he got have not produced anything that is of a real meaningful thing for the Tigers. And so you're rebuilding the rebuild, and that's not what you want. Because if it doesn't work for Weaver and Yzerman, because CBS Sports is now putting out the graphic. We've been doing this podcast since 2013, and we are approaching in September our 10-year anniversary. Do you know when the last not playoff appearance, teams get to the postseason? Do you know when the last playoff win was? It was in 2013 when we started this mess. The last time a Detroit team won a playoff game was in 2013. That is crazy.
Is that Tigers?
Yeah, Tigers and Wings. They each got to the postseason, and the Pistons have gotten to the postseason, but they get swept out. So we have basically, since the first year of our completed podcast, we have not talked about a playoff win. We've talked about the Pistons getting their ass beat, the Wings making their appearance but getting swept, and the Lions obviously not having success. So it is a crazy thing to think about that throughout the course of over 500 episodes, we haven't talked about a playoff win. It's just crazy to think about, and it can't be something that is sustained any further. So I'm hoping that we can talk about something more positive other than, looking at the antics of the players on these teams and looking at constantly rebuild. Rebuild City is funny the first couple times you hear it, but it becomes real sad the more that you talk about it, because it's truly Rebuild City, and we're right in the middle of it, and people are not happy. Speaking of not being happy, oh boy, did your boy Jim Costa. I like him because typically, and it's very funny being in the media, and you and I know this, and you've been there now. You've worked in the radio. You've seen when things like this spark off. Typically, you don't really want to draw the ire of fans because they just are nonstop trolling. But Jim Costa took that road. He took that challenge, and I give people credit for doing it. I've obviously done it. You got to have a little bit of grit and toughness to kind of, handle the hard-nosed fans. I did it with Michigan State. I posted a video of Tom Izzo and a player having a interaction and, threw a little spice into it, and people were like, "What are you talking about?" And that was probably the hottest it got for us. The other one was just randomly, I threw a question out one time. I said, "Is Cooper Kupp better than Calvin Johnson?" After he had like a massive game, and people were like, "This is disgusting," and I can't believe it. But you know that it only lasts for 24 hours, and so that's the secret, is that you just turn off your phone, and 24 hours later, some boob will say something else, and it goes away. But Jim Costa let it out. He's like, on his Twitter page, and he's a good friend, and he understood it because I poked fun at him. I said, "Why are you looking at me? Blame Jim. He posted it." And he's like, I hate that guy. So he understands. He understands what to do, and he's funny. But what he did was he drew attention to something that is real sensitive to people, in that right now, Jamison Williams, the talented wideout from the Lions, is super popular among the fans. He's been basically made a victim. People really want to support him because a columnist from a local paper wrote something with a harsh headline, and people are like, "What are you guys doing in the media talking about Jamison Williams?" I look at it and I say, this all stems from Jamison Williams posting a video of himself with a real cheap lighter lighting some fireworks at 1:15 a.m. and posting it on social media. Jim Costa got wind of it. He posted it, and he drew the ire. And so it's great for someone like me because I can write about it, and everyone just focuses on Jim. But the real truth of the matter is I think what people are doing is, in their reaction, is they're swinging in a black and white term. It's don't talk about Jamison or at all, or let's fully support him. And it's like, guys, we can say that, look, would I, as a professional athlete making $19 million, take my phone out as I'm lighting fireworks at 1:15? No, I would not. Would I take off my phone out as I'm at the bar hitting on a girl and spitting game and trying to enjoy an adult conversation at 2 a.m.? No, I would not. Would I be doing those activities? Of course I would be. I would be gambling, spending money. I would be out in certain establishments, but nobody would know about it. And it's so crazy because I read this book, and people always say, "Oh, what kind of person?" When I was a kid, I really liked reading all different kind of books from all different kind of people. But I gravitated toward Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly because of their writing. I liked what they would say. And Bill O'Reilly is a staunch right-wing dude. And he's like, guys, you can be a freak in the bedroom. You can do all those kind of things, but close the door and stop talking about it. I don't want to hear about your sexual escapades. It cheapens it. It's an adult thing. And all we're asking is keep it behind closed doors. Do what you got to do. Be a man, be an adult, be Jamison Williams, have fun. But if you got $19 million, I got friends that have better setups than what he's doing, lighting off a box at 1 o'clock. You don't got friends that can set up electronically? It's not that hard. I mean, it's all available on YouTube. And I just say that for the storyline that everyone knows that you're under the microscope, I just think you're fanning the flames and really showcasing an I don't care attitude. Yeah, of course he can live his life. I'm not saying he can't do it. It is risky. It is putting yourself out there. I just think the bigger violation is you don't really need to share some of those things on social media because all it's going to do is draw negativity. And knowing that, I think he's still doing it because he doesn't care. He has a sense of security. He knows at least for a couple of years the Lions are going to give him a chance. But he is playing with fire. And I just think that that's too risky when you're a professional athlete, especially with where the Lions are at. They need you. So I'm not doing those kind of things. Yeah, he can live his life. I'm not mad at him. I'm not judging him. I'm just saying that he's upping the risk level. As we've seen, you've gambled and not known the rules. There could have been a scenario where somebody that's real butthurt and sensitive in the streets calls the police, and now you're dealing with an arrest or things that don't need to be distractions. And football teams don't like distractions. Organizations don't like that. They don't. While it's funny and we can debate about it from my chair, organizations don't like noise. They try to avoid it like the plague. Dan Campbell is not going to be personally thrilled that this is what we're talking about 2 weeks before camp. And that's just the way it is. And I think that what people fail to realize, is that we can have these discussions. It's not like we're trying to throw Jameson Williams out. We want him on the team. And that's why we're discussing it, is that we don't want to see anything at all low risk in regards to an athlete that's highly compensated that you want on the field. And doing stuff like this just is an added risk that has the potential, if done again, can cause a problem. And that's where Jim's at, and he's a good dude, and he understands what's going on. He doesn't deserve being called a racist and all that kind of stuff that the Twitter mob does. And guys, come on. Think outside the box a little bit. Don't be part of groupthink. Think logically. Think, why are we talking about this? So it speaks to me because I'm a psychologist. It's like parents that are like, let them live. Well, if my kid said, Daddy, I want to go outside and light fireworks at 1:15, I'm going to be like, get your ass in the house. I'm tired. I was asleep on the 4th of July at 11:25. You know what I mean? My kids are not going to be out in the streets at 1:15. And let Jameson live. No one's saying he can't live, but operate a little bit in the confines of a societal norm. And that's where the biggest debate that people have, at least in my psychological office, is there are societal norms that really should be followed, which is, come on, don't light fireworks after midnight. You know, I know people in the Middle East community like to light up fireworks at all hours of the night. We had our fun. Fireworks went off at 10, done at 10:30, drive home, walk in the door at 11, call it a night. So just have some respect for societal norms. And I know young people don't understand that. And that's one of the big things I teach people is, yes, you have your thoughts, but one of the big things that helps you grow as a person is to also put yourself in other people's shoes. Lighting off fireworks at 1:15 is not kosher in my mind. What'd you think of it all? You think it's a bunch of overreaction, or are you thinking that, man, Jameson Williams is just way too much under the microscope, but maybe it's self-inflicted because he just loves to turn on the phone?
I think you've got a very young player who has showed a lot of immaturity in a very short period of time. That's why there's the outrage and all the people getting upset. Let's just look at this situation, then we can kind of work backwards with all the other things that he's done. Look at just this situation. 1, it's 1:15 in the morning. What are you doing? Have some respect for everybody else in your neighborhood. 2, you are a professional football player. You make your money with your hands. Your job is a receiver. What does a receiver do? He receives the football. With what? Not his feet, not his chest, not his head, not his legs, not his arms, his hands. You are lighting something that explodes. Have you not learned anything from JPP? Do you not remember JPP basically blowing off every digit from his hand but 2? Yeah, JPP went on to have a pretty decent career after he blew up his hand. But that being said, he's a dude who had to put his nub in the dirt, and he rushed the quarterback and had to wrap an arm around the quarterback. He didn't catch footballs with his hands. That wasn't his job. His job was to wrap up a quarterback or put pressure on the quarterback. So he could do that with his little bit of nub. All right? On top of all of this, I'm not saying don't light fireworks. I'm not saying don't enjoy fireworks. I myself, I don't really enjoy fireworks. I don't like them. We've talked about this a couple times on a couple different shows. I had a very bad experience when I was a child where I had one blow back and blow up underneath my foot. I'm very lucky I didn't lose my foot. So fireworks are not my thing. But all that being said, be an adult. Be an adult. Don't put this shit on social media. Don't show this on your Instagram. Like, there's no need for any of that.
Right.
Go live your life. Go have fun. Don't put it on your Instagram. Don't do that. Okay? You just don't need to do those things. Now, if you want to work backwards from the situation and why I feel that the temperature on the pot gets turned up with him, you go back, and this is a guy who has not played a whole lot. This is a high draft pick. This is a guy that you traded up for and that you went and got. And there were a lot of people who were saying, go do a lot of different things when you were, one, trading up for him, and two, you could have probably stayed where you were at and drafted another guy who would be a Pro Bowl player. Instead, you move up, you go get this guy. So there's a lot of resources wrapped up in you. And you are supposed to be a guy who is supposed to grow into being a superstar. So fans have a bit of an attachment to you. All that being said, you haven't played a whole hell of a lot. You then look at this season. This season is supposed to be very promising for the Detroit Lions, and you're on the bench for the first 6 games. Why? Because you messed up with a gambling rule. Now, the gambling rule, whether it be stupid, whether it be whatever, the gambling rule is what the gambling rule is. You didn't follow it. You got caught. You're now sitting for 6 games. That's on you. It's not on the league. That's not on anybody else in the Lions. It's not on your agent. It's on you. Know the rules. Know what you got to do. Be better. All right? So there, another red flag. Then you look at what happened in the middle of last season when he was finally able to get on the field. There was a little bit of a temper tantrum. Didn't like how he wasn't getting the ball enough. Like, bro, you just started playing football again. You just started playing on this team. Okay? Yes, he's electric. He really is. But all that being said, we don't need the diva attitude. You just got here. Calm down. Okay? And then he gets suspended for the gambling. He then goes to Vegas and he puts all this on social media. It just kind of seems like you're not taking it serious enough, you know? Like you have a massive opportunity in front of you, and you are more concerned with getting likes on stupid videos than you are with your football career. In between all of this, he goes down to I think he went to the east side, maybe went to the west side of Detroit, and he's just handing out dollar bills to kids. Like, what are you doing? Like, obviously you don't know this area, but you could get got. Luckily you didn't, but like you could. Don't put yourself in bad spots. And that's what this really comes down to. This is where I say it's a maturity issue, because this is a guy who regularly puts himself in bad spots. Now, I'm not questioning anything he does on the football field. I've already said he's electric. All right. But it's the off the field stuff that makes me scratch my head and say, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing these things? What is the love affair with this? And it's not even so much that you want to go do these things. Because, again, if you want to go do these things, go do these things. But don't put them on social media. Because when you put them on social media, we then have to have this conversation. Because it's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You know? Nobody needs to see you doing this. You don't have to do this either. So it becomes a bit of a frustration. And it's, to me, it screams of a lack of maturity. It seems like a very immature individual who has been gifted a lot, gifted with a lot of talent, gifted with a lot of resources, gifted with a lot of money, and just kind of seems to do dumb stuff with it. And that is frustrating, I think, for a lot of people. And rightfully so. Like, it is, to me, it is dumb, and it is boner moves made by a guy who you have a lot of hope for, and a guy who there's a lot riding on, but I don't think he gets that. And now, look, I haven't had a conversation with him, so I don't know if he gets it or not, but it really seems like with some of these actions, he just doesn't get it. And I think what Jim did was fine. You know, I've seen Jim's tweet. I read Jim's tweet. I don't think Jim said anything wrong. You know, I think at a certain point, somebody in the Lions organization needs to grab Jameson Williams and needs to be like, you need to grow up. Like, you have to grow up.
Yeah.
I understand you're 20-some years old. I understand what you got going on, but you have to grow up. This team needs you. You need to take better care of yourself, because the things you are doing, you're putting yourself in danger's way, and it could cost not just you. It could cost this team. It could cost this franchise. I don't know if he understands how much was actually given up to get him.
Right.
Like when he was drafted, what the Lions actually gave up to get him. It's a ton. There's a ton riding on this kid's shoulders. You just need to kind of put your head down and just work, man. That's what you got to do. Make your name, make it mean something, make it count. I'm not saying don't go have fun. I'm not saying don't go do the things that you want to do. But what I am saying is don't put them on social media.
Correct.
Don't be a boob.
Exactly. And I think that is going to eventually be addressed. I mean, you are tempting fate here. And this one, he gets a pass. This one, he survived. Obviously, people like fireworks, and he's going to garner support. But the more he does this, the support will wane. It eventually does. And Lions fans remember those that have kind of come and gone and been flash in the pans. And I think he has a good chance to succeed in the NFL level. But let's just see how his behavior on social media continues and what type of things he's willing to share publicly. Now, before we talk about Twitter and the Rocket Mortgage Classic, just kind of having some minor things going on that are concerning. Real quick temperature check of the Tigers. It's been real unfortunate. Obviously, after playing Colorado and Torkelson having some home runs, a little bit more excitement for a series against the A's because many people thought that they were going to kick the A's ass, and it's not going that way. The ire that the Tigers drew against the Athletics getting pounded 12-3 on Wednesday was crazy. And it's just at this point, because the Tigers, we know what they are. They're 6 games out of first place. We know that they're struggling in multiple spots. It's going to be a year where they're not going to make the playoffs. And I just think that for this week, the temperature check is ice cold, baby. You're getting pounded by the A's, who have actually kind of had a little resurgence. I think their move and rallying the fans a little bit has galvanized them. They've played a lot better brand of baseball, and the Tigers' offensive woes have returned. You have Spencer Torkelson, who we will talk about next week. Let's see what kind of week he has, but he's been up and down. You are getting Riley Green back. You are getting Eduardo Rodriguez back. There will be a little bit of correction made with probably moving on from Scope and Haas and moving out some players that are not performing well. The All-Star break is going to do this team well, and we'll have an opportunity to dive deep a little bit on some players that we got to kind of see a little bit more from. But this week for the Tigers, just I would say, like many people, just stay away. Take a week off. It's not been good. You're just going to get pissed off, and losing to the A's like that, where you're giving up home runs, you're not playing well. Javi Baez doing his thing again. Let's just say for the Tigers, it was a shitty-ass week, and we'll move on. Because we want to end the podcast with a couple things here that are just kind of concerning. And you look at the world in general, and it involves information and communication. The Rocket Mortgage Classic was really spectacular in my mind in regards to...
It was great.
It was great theater, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the communication from the PGA Tour to the fan base about where to find it live was tough. Now, it's tough because on Sunday, the weather wreaked havoc, and they started at 9 a.m. Well, the public doesn't get to see golf usually until 3 when the leaders tee off, and that's when they broadcast it on TV. So I experienced it too because I was when it started raining. For me, I got into the course at 7:30, and I started walking with some of the early participants, Colin Morikawa, and then when the leaders teed off, I came back to them, was going to follow them for as many holes as possible. Got through 5 holes, it started raining. I go back to the media area, and it's not being shown, and I'm trying to find it, and I went to PGA, didn't find it. Went to CBS, didn't find it. I think I did a search, and then I discovered it was on Peacock. Nowhere was it shared with anybody. I'm like, what's going on? And then come to find out, the papers were criticizing the communication because it ended up early in the morning live at 3 different places, at ESPN, at PGA, at CBS, the CBS app. All you need to do from the main account is, here is where you can find, it's a simple tweet. Here is where you can find the event right now. Oh, it will end at 11. Switch over. So I just thought the communication made it tough for those that wanted to see it live. But I got to see it live, and boy, was it competitive. It was great to see the pressure-packed golf, the shots that were being made. Got a bird's eye view of Ricky Fowler winning, the People's Champ. And it's great live. If you can get out to a live event, it's really fun. But I'm just, this week, to wrap up, I'm just disappointed. You know, being a Twitter user, a heavy Twitter user, Their platform has changed dramatically, like you said earlier. TweetDeck is now a shell of what it was just 5 days ago. It's a disaster. Now this new thing, Threads, comes on. It's okay, but it just seems like a lighter version of Twitter. So I'm just disappointed in that you would think innovation would produce better results. And lately, in the last year, tinkering has just made things worse. You see updates when you're like, man, TweetDeck, Twitter was working just fine. You do an update and it changes everything and everybody's pissed. So I'm disappointed. Innovation hasn't happened. I'm disappointed that easy stuff, like the simple stuff, like how hard is it to send out a tweet to direct people to where they need to go? It's a simple thing in my mind, but it just, I don't know why the communication wasn't there, or why the networks didn't, the Peacock, or why the information just didn't get relayed to the masses. And you have the papers going, there was mass confusion. People on the course were saying the same things. They couldn't find it. And nowadays, I understand live sports need to be shown live, especially when you have a made putt at 2 o'clock. People could have seen it. But at the same time, it still was taped. You still could have watched it at the normal time that normal golf is on. So it wouldn't have changed your routine. But I'm just disappointed when you would think that stuff that it's kind of the layups are made so difficult in this day and age. And it's disappointing because Twitter had a chance to be an influential social thing, and it's just really a cesspool of hate and trash talk. But now when you make it where I go on there and you limit how many tweets I can see, bro, we follow 100,000 people or 50,000 people. The rate of information comes through so fast. It lasted half an hour. So I'm not paying the $8. I would easily pay it. I mean, yeah, you want more people to see your stuff. No doubt about it. But if you're going to request money and make me pay for TweetDeck when it was free, and your service is terrible, and you take away features that were useful, it's just, I'm left here disappointed. And that's what it is that I just don't understand where communication breakdowns happen, where you don't get information to your fans and you innovate a product in a way that makes people pissed off. It's just so weird to me.
Yeah, I don't. So let me kind of work backwards here. So the Rocket Mortgage Classic, I thought it was fantastic. I thought the way Ricky ended up winning it, it was awesome. It was great theater. And the fact that Ricky won it was great. The issue I had is I knew it was going to be on Peacock. They had made that mention the day before I was watching it. So I knew that. That wasn't a problem for me. Halfway through, it switches from Peacock to the CBS Sports app.
Right.
And I missed that announcement. I was in the middle of making coffee or breakfast, or I stepped outside to let one of the dogs out. I don't know. I came back, it was off, and I was like, where the hell is this? And it took me 20 minutes to figure it out. I ended up having to go to Twitter, and I looked on Twitter, and everybody's like, you got to go to your CBS Sports app. And I was like, well, that's just stupid. So I went to my CBS Sports app on my phone, and I was like, well, hopefully I can get this on my TV. To me, it was weird because it goes from being on Peacock, which is unfortunate for a lot of people because not everybody has Peacock. But then from there, it goes to the CBS Sports app. Like, that's not even like CBS has a ton of apps. That's like the 4th or 5th app that CBS has.
Right.
That's like even relevant. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is like, we use that. I use that app for our March Madness. I use that app when quickly trying to grab a score. I don't use that app for anything else.
Right, me either.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I was just like, what the CBS Sports app? Anyways, I was able to find it, so it was fine. But I felt bad for everybody else. I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, if my old man was watching this, I was like, one, he wouldn't be because he doesn't have Peacock. But two, if he had to try to figure out how to get to the CBS Sports app or even what that was, he'd be lost. Like, viewership for this just had to get punched in the nuts because the way they went about it was just so screwy, and bouncing between Peacock to CBS Sports app, like, it's just weird. Too many apps already. It was just very frustrating, and it was a great event, and that was kind of the one low light of it all. Twitter itself, though,
cesspool.
Yeah, like, dude, you realize, like, we built this podcast on Twitter. There were many nights you and I sitting at your kitchen table just adding followers and interacting with people and just working Twitter. And at a certain point, you just took it over because you love it. And I was totally cool with that because I am not a social media guy. And you love it. And I was like, that's great. You do what you got to do, bud. And I use it every now and then just to kind of interact with people who interact with me. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
What it's become is a shell of what it used to be. and how
Yeah.
good it used to be.
Right.
It is unfortunate. It is where it's at right now. It is a complete mess. And then to me, it just seems like at one point it was like one of the best free apps you could get.
Yep.
And it like connected everybody with information. And now it is just looking to charge you for everything. Like I'm waiting for us to be charged 25 cents to view a tweet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it is unreal.
But it's not unreal if you make it better. Like, here's the thing. You know, for $8 you get this, or I added a feature that's useful. It's not here's $8 and then we're gonna make a TweetDeck something that is not user friendly, or take away a feature from TweetDeck that everybody uses, where you could add multiple accounts on it and make it not user friendly, or make it so that currently at this point in time you have a rate limit because you can't get your shit together and figure out how to block people from taking information. It's not fun, and at the same time, it's a situation in which you don't see the benefit. I asked people who paid the $8, and they're like, yeah, maybe their stuff shows up a little bit more, but it's not enough enticing to make it worthwhile. You need more features that are going to make it. Or you say, hey, we'll have it so that if you pay the $8, your follower count will be exposed. We'll add you for so many months on the who to follow list at the top. Or if you pay extra, we'll make it so that the part of what people want is growth and engagement. Or hey, we can make it specific where if somebody says something that you find offensive or anything like that, it doesn't go through. Like something advanced, like hey, a nasty tweet with a trigger word that you post you'll never see it. Something innovative, something great. But yeah, exactly. It's just obviously it's someone trying to recoup and making the experience terrible and pissing people off. And look, something has already been started new that people are doing. And it's just unfortunate. I'm not going to be on it as much. I'm on it. But yeah, you're right. I'm not going to be on it as much as I was. And actually, I'm kind of happy because really it is, for 10 years, you can only take so much hate and vitriol and someone getting blasted for just sharing information. It's not what it's about. So it's unfortunate because you would think that innovation like Apple and iPhones would make things go to the next level. But in the end, it's capitalism, it's commercialism, someone trying to, recoup money. And obviously it kind of, because it just has a sense of, hey, I paid $40 billion for it and I got a bill to pay and I can't pay it because not that many people are going to pay $8 for Twitter. You just don't need to. It's not worth it. There's no value to it. And I'd be the first one to pay it easily. But I would not do that based on where it's at. And it's unfortunate. It's sad. But we will work within the confines of it and have fun with it and be entertaining and try to find ways to kind of get information from others in a new and fun way. It's just unfortunate because innovation should make things easier. And I think the same, I understood it from your perspective. Most people that want to have a healthy, balanced life don't want to be on Twitter looking at people's groupthink behavior and being like, oh my God, you're such a hater. Calling people racist for sharing their ideas is not what was intended for Twitter. But we'll see how it evolves. We'll see if it lasts. We'll see if it even functions. So for now, you can follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Follow us on Threads, Detroit Sports _podcast. Simple migration. We follow most people on Instagram. It lets you follow those people back. So picking up a little bit there, but for the most part, anywhere that you listen to your favorite audio broadcast, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast and you can get the audio content that you love about Detroit sports, where Adam and I go back and forth, bring the heat, bring the noise, talk about everything relevant in the world of Detroit sports. We aren't going to talk about playoff wins, but maybe in the second 500 wave of our project, maybe we'll actually, it's going to be funny to see if we get to the postseason, if we actually know how to talk about the playoffs and talk about intricate breakdowns of games, because we've been talking about rebuilds and drafts and general managers and things like that. But let's see if we can break down a playoff series if and when the Lions get a chance to get there, or the Red Wings or Pistons. Make sure to maybe follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. He'll give you his thoughts on hockey and everything else in the world of Detroit sports, but maybe with a delay. Not instant, but maybe he'll see it. But
it's usually delayed.
It'll be delayed. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. We'll catch you for sure next week on the latest edition of Doc and Jock.